Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And I'm going to start with a very, very interesting story that happened to me when I was 20-something. And which was my first connection to Glastonbury without being here exactly. And I was meditating at the time, and since about 18 years old, and I had a very, very early on states of consciousness in meditation, high state of consciousness, and some kind of vision. So what I wanted to say through that is that I was already used to have visual information coming in my mind, and this will explain how I was behaving. So I was staying at the time at a kind of, you know, the hippie kind of communities we had in the 70s, and in Montségur for about 2 months. And my friend Edouard was somebody who had this open community where all kinds of people would come from everywhere in the world. And one day he decided that he wanted to take us to the mountains around the site of the castle. You know that the castle is on the top of a very high hill, a small mountain. And it is overlooking the landscape on 360 degrees, okay? And it's really a tiny top of the mountain. And so you have this castle taking practically the whole top of the mountain. And then you can turn around. But sometimes, you know, next to the wall, the mountain is very, very steep, and you hardly have the room to stay. I know because one day I thought it was very near, and I said, why don't people climb by this way to the castle? And I tried, and then it was like I had to pray for my life, and I prayed with a specific type of plant that has extremely deep roots. And only this plant was there with the rocks, and I prayed to this plant, and I said, okay, you saved my life, and I know that I keep touching you, I will get to this wall, because there was absolutely no way I could go back. There was a river down there. And so I made an ally out of this plant, and ça s'appelle, it's called gui in French, and I'm sorry, I don't know. This is one of the strongest and deepest roots in very dry, rocky landscape. Hmm? Yes. But it's not the gui that comes from the tree. It's not the one that is that the Druidic people were taking from the trees, like the oak trees. It's something coming from the ground, okay? And so I managed to keep all the time, you know, with touching this plant, the root. But sometimes I could not hold it, I knew. But sometimes I had to touch it with one toe like that, and try to extend, and finally I reached the wall, and then I had to climb the steep wall, like something like 5 or 6 meters, practically and I could not move through left or right along the wall. There was no room, and I finally managed to climb the wall, and then once I was with one leg, one side of the wall, and the other leg, the other side, I knew I was saved. And then I said, thank you, thank you, thank you, to the plant, of course. And then it remained my ally. So this is one possibility also that you can connect with nature. And I have been a great traveler from 20 to 30 years old. went hitchhiking. From Montségur, I went hitchhiking barefoot without any money. I crossed the whole of Africa. I went back to India, stayed again a year and a half, barefoot, no money, staying with the ascetic, learning with them. So this is just to tell you that, to introduce you to what I want to try to convey to you is what kind of state, what kind of experience in consciousness you can have in these kind of sacred sites, and what kind of information you can get from meditation. So I keep going with my story. We went through the castle, but so Edouard takes a few of us. We were like 4 or 5 people all together, 5, 6. And it takes us to the mountains now, not the castle, but around. You have a lot of peaks around. Of course, it's a Pyrenees mountain, so it's full of tiny peaks. And that's where you had the Templars, were specifically in the Pyrenees mountains because they had all kinds of very, very telluric, extraordinary telluric peaks everywhere. So that's also where you have Rennes-le-Château and not too far from Montségur. And so he took us to the mountain, and at one point there was a huge wall, natural wall, which was one piece, like a huge, absolutely huge megalith in the real sense of the term. And there was an opening as if there was a door. And then again, a huge wall, but it was not like a quarry, what we saw with the quarries, like it had not been really quarried, or, but it was smooth. At the same time, it was really looking like a wall, and one piece of stone, a monolith, you know. And with this opening like a door, and at the same level, both sides, practically, and it was following the hill up, okay? So we felt such a strong thing. At the moment we arrived in front of this absolutely natural place, a sacred site place, that was not on any map, that had no name, that was not known. The group, all of us, we stopped talking, and we started behaving in the same manner. That was very, very strange. First of all, we saw this wall, we saw this opening, and everybody just went there. Of course, we passed the opening. But me, in passing the opening, I knew I was getting into very, very strong sacred site. And immediately I touch the opening, and I have a way, you know, to talk with the stones, to feel that there is we will talk about that just in a minute. I call it semantic energy, or SIG energy, the energy of consciousness. There is an energy of consciousness with an information that is remaining imprinted in the stones, whether they are monuments, you know, of whatever time, or whether they are just natural stones. And this is why in all the culture in the world, practically all the ancient cultures at least, you have, the stones are sacred. But why are they sacred? They are sacred because they have the print of history, the print of consciousness, of whatever happened around and where they are to make an antenna, they are there. So we arrive at this site, and so I touch the stone like as if I'm talking to the stone, okay? I transmit, I exchange, energy with this left and right of this door, natural door, and then I get in. We don't know if it is natural or not, by the way. And then there is so you have to know, there is the hill going very flat, at the same time let's say 40 degrees angle going up. And here is a flat place, like half of this room, quite large. And in the middle of this place, we see a round, a semantic print of a round that is still, like we feel it's a place where people used to sit in a circle a long, long, long time ago. You have to understand that you have so many mountains around Montségur. At that time, there were so few tourists who were going to the hill, to the castle, and that's it. They are not going to take their car unless they are called, they are researchers like you know, or, but normally they don't. They just go to the castle, and then they go to the restaurant, and they take photo, and that's it. So this site had not been, there was like the probability for somebody to get to this site, unless he is a psychic and he is attracted by this site, is absolutely extremely low, you know. So we don't talk. You remember that as soon as we were not even entering, we stopped talking and we started behaving all together. And we just go there, we're attracted, and we sit around in this round. And then we have a very intense feeling of something happening. And at that point, we stay there without talking and just meditating for maybe, I would say, 20 minutes or something. And then everybody gets up and go. And myself too, because I'm in an immense era of mountains, one hill after one peak after one hill, etc. And of course, the car, now we have let it, I don't know, like we had half an hour walk already. I have no idea where is the car, so I have to stay with the group. But I am the last one to exit, and at the moment I'm exiting this place, and I have done 2 or 3 meters, like I let the other one go, and I have some force pulling me back. And it's like I cannot even, I'm so taken by it that I cannot even say to my friend, hey, wait for me, I have to go back to the site. I'm just taken like this, and I go back, and again I pat the stone, both sides. And I had seen when we were sitting down there that there was one place in the whole hill climbing up. There was only one place which was just like down there, but for one person. It was 2/3 of the hill. And the hill was not the top of the mountain, which is very strange for this kind of happening. And I knew that I had to go back by myself alone in this site. I had to climb and sit exactly at that one place for one person, which was exactly perfectly in the middle, like the round down there. And I go and I sit. And at that point, I am used to have images quickly, so I sit in meditation, I make the void, and I listen, and nothing is happening. I said, no, I'm not correct. It's not, nothing is happening. So I go outside, I exit, I say goodbye, I exit, I make 2 or 3 meters. I see that my friends are already at the top of the hill, the other one. And again, this force is pulling on me, and I have to get back. The 3rd time, so this is happening 3 times, without any consideration about my friends that are going to maybe not realize that I'm not with them, and who knows. And the 3rd time I sit on that place for one person, which was where it's very, very, very old. The 3rd time I sit there, I suddenly, instantly, but the 3rd time, I see rays, so I'm sitting, I see rays like 6 or 7 rays of very, very thin, like laser rays, you know. absolutely not coherent light, absolutely not just seen like as if you had a pencil, you know, but a laser ray. And they are whitish, and it's a fan of about, I would say, 120 degrees, you know, and perfectly like this. And at the level of my head. And I know that those rays are connecting sacred places. Instantly, as soon as I see the rays, I know they are connecting different sacred sites in the world. And I take the first ray on the left, and I follow it as if I was sliding on it, you know. I follow, because I could see only that the rays were going, but I could not see where they were arriving. So I slide on this ray, and that's where I get to Glastonbury. That was the first ray, from Montségur to Glastonbury. And then I did a few of the rays. And the last one on the right, Montségur is the Pyrenees, south of France. So it was the left, the most on the left was Glastonbury, and so Avalon. And then I had one with Stonehenge also. And the last one on my right was Ellora, the sacred site Ellora, the Ajanta cave and Ellora, which are on the same line as Kailash mountain, because, you know, it's not straight, as you saw with the image of Hugues. Of course, the lines are curving around the Earth. So my impression was that they were straight, but in fact, it's because very near they look straight, but in fact, they are curving around the Earth, those rays. But they are coherent. They never go. They stay like a thin pencil, you know. And so, not only it was arriving at Ellora because I recognized the site, but also it was after I had gone to India, but also Ajanta, and then the Kailash, and then the line was moving to Angkor Wat. So that's a kind of experience you can have. And then I was, wherever I would go, and I would especially visit sacred sites in the world, wherever I would go, I would get into meditation, like in Delphi was an absolutely incredible experience. You know, the oracle of Delphi in Greece. I found out, first of all, you try to feel, you know, where is the place with the maximum sig energy of consciousness. And then when you get that place, you sit there, and there are different types of meditation you can do, but one is, first of all, to try to get a ray of light from your head. And this ray is, it's, of course, the geography of those states has nothing to do with space and time of physics, you know. So it so happened that one day in Delphi, I was able, through a ray that I emanated from my head chakra, a thin ray, same energy, I was able to move through layers of history, backward. And the first layer was the modern times, and then at one point I went very, very far back, all the way to the time where I was in touch with some of those oracle women, at which point I was able to discuss with them and get some information about this site. Another type of meditation you can do, so if you understand, is that sometimes you feel there is an energy. Maybe some of you may be able to feel when there is a perfect spatial consciousness. Of course, it's not, it's an individual consciousness. It can be extremely sophisticated consciousness, extremely ancient in terms of it has thousands and tens of thousands of years, those consciousness of the site, you know, or in a very old tree, because you have the tree before the tree on the same place. And it bears an incredible memory and at the same time a gigantic possibility of understanding the future, because the more you're able to comprehend in the grasping the past, the more you are able to feel the probabilities of the future. And so those consciousnesses are absolutely incredible. And so another way is to be able to talk with those the spirit of the place. So you can talk to the stones, you can talk to the trees, you can talk to the spirit of a sacred site. And this will give you a lot of information. So one meditation that is that I love myself to do is from the time that I had this in Montségur. When I get into a sacred site, I look for a spot with maximum, which I feel is the antenna. Where is the antenna? You know, the node, so to speak, of the site. And then I sit there, and I put this, I emanate this ray on top from the head chakra, and then it's like an antenna, you know. And then I let it, by itself, get the with other sacred sites. For example, in Delphi, I had a most incredible connection, of course with Montségur, but of course with other sites in Asia and all that. So what we can, the interesting point about Montségur is that even with my experience of the time, which was quite okay, because it was like a year and a half in India, living with the ascetics, the sadhus. So even with this experience, there was absolutely no way that I could have imagined what happened. There was no way I would expect a site. They are always on top of mountains. They are always looking around 360 degrees, like Montségur. This one was in the middle of the hill, and it was facing only the whole north. The whole northern hemisphere was connected through those lines, you know. 120 degrees is enough to connect all from India, from the south of India to Britain. It's the whole northern hemisphere, because your lines are turning around. So, of course, they will also go south, but in the southern hemisphere. But already they connect everything. So if you had 3 places, like around Montségur, with the 3 of them, the hill facing another direction, 3 times 120, you would have the whole Earth being connected and reconnected because the lines are turning. So, and from each site, a sacred site, when you go and you find a place where to meditate, and the only thing you do is you put yourself straight, and then you make the void, and then you wait to feel if you are connected to some places. And that alone was showing me that there had been, because the sites that were connected were from an incredible antiquity. We had in those just 6 lines, or 7, I don't remember, 6, 7, I had the Druidic places, Stonehenge, Angkor. I had places like in Asia, Angkor Wat, the Kailash, the abode of the gods. I had the major northern hemisphere sacred site on this on those lines that I could feel. So it's like it made me aware that there is a grid which is turning all over Earth. And also, it was very strange. Why should I be? Why did I have to enter the place and to exit it 3 times? I mean, 2 times. And only the 3rd time I was sitting at this specific place did it open, you know, and suddenly I could get connected. And this is something that has happened also another time in India, that I had to get 3 times on the same spot for it to open, so to speak. So it's like you have, so you know, what can I bring to you from my experience is an aspect of the research on the sacred sites, on the megalith, on these ancient times, that is more on the side of the spiritual side of it. So I made some research. I'm also able to see not only those lines, but I'm able to see from the time I started meditating around 18, I started being able to see this SIG energy that I'm making research on it from different fields. I have this book, The Sacred Network, where half of it is the experience of consciousness related to field of harmony and sacred sites and all kinds of very strange experience that you can get that connects the two. And the other half of the book is on specifically on the decoding I did of the sacred site, of the sacred network, specifically on Paris. So one thing I could see since I was 18 is like in Paris, especially I was born there, I was living there, and I could see over the monuments, but sometimes, you know, they were just domes, not only the cathedral, Notre-Dame de Paris, but even a tiny statue and all that. There was one statue with the man on the horse, you know, was like this on a bridge near Bercy, Porte de Bercy. And it's very strange because the tail of the horse was going like that, which is, of course, not natural. And his hand was like that. So you had, and his other arm was like that. So you had definitely something, a ray of light going upward. And the other one with the tail of the horse was also going. So it was like, on me, when I see that on the bridge, you know, over the Seine, I can see the energy going. And I say, oh, but there are lines connecting the monuments. So at that time, it was what I could feel. On the other side, the line was arriving on the horse, on the statue, and then it was rebouncing on the statue, and then sent to another place in Paris. And finally, I will explain to you how I understood that more precisely that the churches and cathedrals are connected. But finally, only in 2010 or 8, I was in Brazil, and basically I had not so much to do, and I had a little metro map, and I said, but I have seen always the energy of like bursting from the top of the churches and the domes, you know. And I go in Paris and I'm driving in my car and I see, oh, there is something wrong in Paris today, you know, because there is no energy over the cathedral and the Tour Eiffel and on any dome. And when Paris, when the place has a great energy, is very healthy, you see it's full of light, you know. You see it has nothing to do. You see the light even better if the sky is gray. This is perfect. If you want to be able to see the light on a building, you take a day where the sky is gray, and you sit down in front of a roof, something that can work as an antenna. You sit and you defocus your vision, you know, and as if you were not looking to something, but you were looking to a whole landscape, as if you were putting your eyes like this, and then you will see the aura of the building and maybe those arcs of light that are coming out of the building. You can see also, in this way, you can see if you look over some people passing over a bridge and behind you have a gray sky, you can see their aura very easily, like this, defocusing your vision. So one day I was also hitchhiking before to go to India and all that. I was hitchhiking all the time around Paris. And one day I got into a very, very ancient church, like 16th century, on the way to Beauvais. And that day, of course, I would always try to find, as I said, not only the place with the maximum energy, but if you are inside a geometrical building, like a church, then the place where you want to be is exactly at the center of the dome, and exactly under the center of the dome. And then you stand straight, you know, and you emanate this ray. On that day, I was there, and you can also feel down. You can send your ray down, and then you will feel if there is a cave, if there is a crypt, you know. If I can feel also subterranean tunnels, and then follow them and find where they arrive. So I had an immense number of times where I was able to check on what I had felt in my mind and to see I was right, and as many times where it was not possible. So basically this day I was doing that and then I had the idea to, that was the first time I had the idea to kind of emanate a ray from my head chakra. So very straight, you know, the ray, you can take it down, you can take it up, and your center on your hara. And then I had another idea, which was, I'm going to make a home and try to get in resonance, in harmony with the building. Very small church, huh? It would be half of this room, but very old. And perfect, absolutely beautiful. And so I had this ray, and then to the center of the dome, and then I started making home notes, you know, climbing up slowly, very slowly. You know, and then I climb up, and suddenly, on one specific frequency, suddenly my voice is like, as if I was approaching a microphone, you know. It's suddenly my voice is incredibly amplified, and I feel that the whole building is in resonance, as if it was a violin, you know. The whole tiny church is suddenly absolutely resonating on that specific frequency, which I keep. And I keep this frequency, and suddenly, with the resonance, I don't know why, but my consciousness gets the other side of the dome, passes through the dome with my little ray of light. And then it's like I'm on the movement. I'm very sorry. It's like I'm on the movement, and I go through the dome, and then it's shooting up like, I would say 10, 12 meters, and suddenly it opens as if it was an umbrella with rays, arcs. But those arcs were perfectly geometrical. And same as with Montségur, okay, what are those arcs? So I follow one, plof, and I fall something like 300 meters further on what I feel is another node, another tiny building under that. And then I do this arc, and then I do this one. You understand? You follow them like this, and you see, and once in a while, because then I have done that in all the churches where I was going through. And so this is another experience that was the start of a whole, developing a whole type of yoga, which I called, which was just for myself. I hardly never made a workshop on it. And it was, let's say that it was a way to connect with a sacred building when you are inside the building, of course. But you could have practically the same way, but it would not resonate. You need a church, you need a building so that you can make it resonate. So from these experiences that I did all my life, each time I was visiting a building, or each time I was getting into a sacred site, I would try to connect like that. I came to understand that some specific laws, so they are not going to be the kind of laws that you may have read in the book, unless you read mine. They are not our usual knowledge about whether you look into Chinese geomancy, or whether you look at what people say about Leys. But I'm going to give you those laws. But I want to tell you that they sprung, all of them, from experience and repeated experience. Because this thing with all of them, each time I would get into a church, I would do that. If the church is what I call integer, whole, a wall, it's like the building has not been repaired badly. If it has been repaired according to the law of the builders, then the stone will resonate on a specific frequency. And when you have the whole building that is resonating on a specific frequency, it's sending this energy to all the nodes where this energy. So basically, you have to imagine, you have to picture an arc of light, which are the arcs I could see when I was in Paris above the building. I could see arcs like this, like on the horse also. So it's like you have the arc arriving on a great building, and then it is geometrically springing out in four, or in sometimes only one more direction. It's only one line. If you have a crossing, you can have a crossing at 4, 6. You need always, you don't have a 6, sorry. You have a crossing at 4 or a crossing at 8. You have crossing at 3, but it's not part of my experience, but they must happen, of course. But you can have also a crossing at 12. Now something very interesting happened also on the map. You can also work on maps, and you are much more, certainly much more knowledgeable about working on maps. Like Watkins, you know, when he understood that the Leys are alignments, he took some maps to try to figure the Leys also. Sorry, excuse me. So you can work on maps, and that's what finally I've done also with Paris. Because those energy lines, they are, first of all, they are undulating, but they are undulating vertically, so that you have, and this is something I have been able to sense also, you have, it's like, there are huge kind of, cylinder, you know, and they make arcs, like one arc of the wave above ground, and they can go up to, I would say, like 3 yards above ground if they are very big, if not 1.5 yards, if they are small length. So small energy lines, they are, let's say, 50 centimeters maximum, like this. And the largest, 2 times I've seen extra large, and they are like practically my arms, like this. You see, they are large, like this is a meter, like 1.20 meters, and it's and they are undulating. So you have a big one. You may have, for example, 200 or 300 meters above ground, and then they plunge inside the ground very slowly, and then you have 200 or 300 meters, yards, same, underground, and then, so they keep undulating, and they turn around Earth. So those are the dragon lines, because they always, at the top of mountain, they are attracted by the top of the mountains, because the top of the mountain is acting like an antenna. Everything that is pointed, anything, whether it's the church with a steeple, or whether you have a dome with a little point, everything that is pointed toward the sky is acting like an antenna. So I realized that when you have those undulating lines, vertical undulating, you have to imagine that sometimes you have 2 waves. Let's say we take a crossing with only 2 lanes. So you have 4 vectors, right? So you have one lane, let's say, well, one line with climbing up, and the other line climbing up. And they meet at the top. At that point, if they really meet at the top, at the moment they are starting at the maximum, then you have practically a Silbury hill that is taken inside this kind of crossing. And so you have if they are both climbing, and then they will cross and go down the other side, you have a meeting, a crossing above ground. And this crossing, these types of crossing, whatever the number of lanes, if only 2 lines are climbing up, then you have what I call an ascending spot, a spot. On this kind of spot, underground, under the spot, under the place of the crossing, you will have a building that is also acting like an antenna. Like you will have a church, you will have a steeple, you will have a dome, whatever is the architecture of wherever you are in the world. Because all those architecture laws connected with the lines, they are they are worldwide. And I believe this is what we see in Gavrinis and in all those spirals. We saw so many of them already this morning. The spirals describe, in my opinion, describes the telluric lines, because those telluric lines are undulating. But now, if you work on a map, you make as if you are looking from above, and your line is straight. So when you work on a map to try to understand the lines, you of course, it's absolutely straight, because your line, you are looking from above at a line that is undulating like that, so you can trace a perfect straight line. But they are really only so much moving left and right horizontally. They move left and right because, first of all, you have to understand, we start with the geomagnetic grid of Earth, okay? You know that Earth is, and even after, first of all, next to the ground, we have the geomagnetic grid. And then you have the magnetic grid of the whole planet. You know, you have seen those, you should, it's absolutely wonderful. You look at the magnetic field of Earth. So the fact that the geomagnetic field is related to the two poles, north and south poles, and then you have energy lines, absolutely geometric, turning around the whole Earth. I believe that those geometric lines of the geomagnetic grid, they are both magnetic and both electric. And I believe that they are the huge, enormous ley lines undulating vertically, which the Chinese were calling the dragon lines, and that are attracted by the top of mountains. Now, if you have a crossing, we go back to a simple crossing of two lines, okay? And if you have two lines that at that spot are crossing underground, because both are coming plunging, so they cross underground, okay? And then they are going to move up, each one on its, each one is always going its own direction, but it happens that they cross. And at the place of those crossing, so we are again in geomagnetic ley lines for now. And at the place of crossing, if they cross downstairs, underground, then you have what I call a grounding spot, a G spot. And it so happens that when you have a crossing underground, you have caves and cave temples. You have the healing temples in Greece, the sleeping and healing temples. And you have the crypt, because a cathedral, for example, is a place where you have, at the minimum, something like between 8 and 14 lines crossing. And they cross at the dome, at the cupola, center of the cupola. They cross at the entrance. You have line crossing at the entrance of the building. And you have also in the middle of the cross, you know, the cathedral, they make a big cross. And there are also line crossing on this cross, on the transept. And so you have, when you have a cathedral, when you build a cathedral, it's because you had a very, very ancient, first of all, Celtic, and even before, you had already megalith at that place. And it's because you have a double crossing where you have some of the lines that are crossing above, and there you put the dome of your cathedral, and you have some of the lines crossing underground, and that's where you put the crypt of the cathedral. And so the cathedral is a kind of extremely complex energy site. And this is why in many, many churches in France, we still have the tradition that, but you have it also in England, that wherever you had a megalith or a dolmen, you know, the megalith, the difference we saw with Peter's presentation, it was very clear because you had the menhir, you know, which are the standing stone, vertical standing stone, are definitely young energy, and they are antennas attracting energy from the cosmos. Now, the dolmen are the underground chambers, and the chamber is the node of the energy crossing, as I said, is a G spot, grounding spot, and the node is underground. So, in the cathedral and in the churches, we had in France, I know myself at least déjà already 12 examples about. But I have researched this only 2 years. But I keep seeing people talking. So generally, in the crypt of churches, there are still, we know that there was a dolmen. Like I had an extraordinary experience in my life in one place where you just have now a tiny church, and there was a dolmen under, and it's still there. There is still a huge table, not the underground chamber, but the one with the huge table, you know, and then you can sit under, you know, you have an opening and you can sit. So you have tiny stones like this, and one stone is not in the circle, so you can, on top of that, you have a huge monolith, one block, enormous, you know, table, flat table. And that's a dolmen, what we call dolmen in France. And once in a while, you have a cover alley leading through that, or you don't have a cover alley. And I saw one in the Dogon country. I saw a perfect dolmen like we have in France, with the enormous table on the tiny stone making a round, and it was so sacred that they use it as what they call maison des vieux, where only the oldest people from the Dogon village. The village was on top of a mountain, and they had this chamber with a huge monolith, and they call it the Maison des Vieux, house of the initiate, the ancient, the elders' house. Okay, and it was totally sacred, you know. On me, I had my spirit awakening. I knew how only the oldest people, Dogon, male, initiate, could get into that chamber, but my spirit woke me up in the middle of the night. We were staying with some friends at the chief house on top, sleeping on the roof, and my spirit woke me up and said, you have to go and sleep inside the Maison des Vieux. So I went in the middle of the night, and I took a little longi to put on the ground, and I found a way to meditate and then sleep, and to give myself the order that I would wake up before dawn, because I was afraid that somebody would see me in this very, very sacred place. But if my spirit was telling me to do something, I would do it. And when I woke up in the morning before dawn, all the ancient of the village, all the elders of the village had come around the chamber, and they were sleeping on the ground, but there were so many of them, the only way I could get, and they were like totally asleep yet, still, and I had to step over them, which was absolutely terrible for me, in order to get back to the house of the chief further on this esplanade. This house, this dolmen, was on top of a hill, looking 360 degrees everywhere. And it was a Neolithic age. But you know, of course, you have an incredible number of megaliths in Africa. Dogon country, it's on the eastern side of Mali. You know, it's a Niger River there. Okay. So this is so I get back to conclude how I'm doing.
We'll finish very soon.
Okay, so I'm concluding about this. So basically, the more lines are crossing at one point, and the most important and the most effect on this energy and the most sacred. So in Chartres, believe it or not, but in Chartres Cathedral, I was able to find out the information that a few centuries back, a notary rapport, you know, was talking about there had been the trembling of the earth, and they were afraid for the foundation of the Chartres Cathedral. And the architect, which was in this family of notaries, there was one architect, and then he made his report inside the notarial journal, so to speak. And so he was called to go in the foundation on the crypt, and he found out that there was a tunnel that they had to open for him to check the foundations, and there was an arc of 12 huge standing stones with like a half elliptic, ellipse. And they had runes on the inside of the ellipse. They had runes carved on them. And this was, and then when he exited and he saw that there was no damage, it was an astrological temple, like Stonehenge, you know. Maybe not as important, maybe, but still an astronomical temple, and they had built the whole Chartres Cathedral above to cover this place. And then I was intrigued by this story, and I started researching, and I realized that, yes, I don't know if you have visited Chartres Cathedral, but what happened is that you have the crypt at the level of the ground. What they call Saint-Fulbert crypt is at the level of the ground on one side of the hill. And then the crypt at the level of the ground, then you have steps, like you have two stories, 1.5 stories of step, like something like 16 steps to go to the cathedral itself. So you have this gigantic space. And the crypt, what they call the Saint-Fulbert crypt, is like a horseshoe, immense. Chartres is one of the most immense cathedrals we have. So it's like the horseshoe is like not even this, you know, it's so thin. It's like a tunnel turning around the cathedral, while you have something like 12 times the space in the middle. So you could have a gigantic Stonehenge under. So I'm going to stop here, and to conclude, what I have discovered is that if the crossing, if there had been a crossing of major Leys, a major number of Leys, the very ancient people, you know that it's not the Celt who built the megalith. It's the people that came before the Celt. The Celt arrived in Europe like 2000 BCE, 2500 BCE. And the people of the megalith, the people who built the megalith, they are a total unknown, and we call them just the people of the megalith. But we know that when the Celt arrived from Germany, all the megaliths were already there. And they did not build anything more. They just pray and use them as sacred places to have their rituals and everything. So first, the people of the megalith from a very ancient past were building those stones at crossing of the geomagnetic, of lines of the geomagnetic field. Then they understood that if the crossing was happening down there, underground, they would have a healing, a place with a healing energy. And at that point, they make a healing temple or a chamber, an underground chamber. If the crossing is happening above ground, then they erect a standing stone like an antenna to get the energy from the cosmos. And if you have a double crossing, then you have at the same time, on a hill, you have the megalithic chamber inside, underground, but inside the hill, and you have on top of the hill a standing stone. And those are the most magnificent because you have two energies. The ascending point, the A spot crossing above ground, it's elevating your energy higher and higher. On the grounding spot, it's a healing place. That's where you have the healing temples, underground healing temples in Egypt, in Greece, in Sumer, in ancient Sumer. So this is a worldwide grid. It's totally beyond religions. The religion passes, they come and they go, and those places of crossing, each new religion will build specifically on this very same site. Thank you very much.